Hello, Victor. How are you?
Hi,
After a
Shreya
long
sir.
time.
After a long time, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good too. So, before we start the discussion, about your journey through MBA, pre-MBA, post-MBA, and all that stuff. MBA also, like 2 years of your MBA. So, can you introduce yourself to our audience, like what you are doing now, from where you did your MBA? And,
So, my name is Victor. Uh, I'm currently working as a general manager sales for a company named as Live Space. It's now into retail and home furnishings. So, it's been almost 2 years with Live Space right now. It's based out of Singapore, and I'm currently heading the department of sales for Gurgaon and Delhi, basically Delhi NCR. I did my MBA from NMIMS in 2019-21, the batch that was affected by COVID in the second year.
right.
And yeah, that's more or less about me.
Okay, okay. So we'll be having like a short discussion like how your journey has been. So when we start with that question, so first of all, let me ask you this question: like you have done your MBA, now you are working. So what do you think? Like the investment that you made in your MBA, the 2 years of your life, plus the money that you invested, like it's pretty big amount, right? So do you think it's worth spending that much time as well as money?
See, very honestly, I think this is a very common question that anyone who is deciding whether to go for an MBA will think about, right? So, in short, the answer will be yes. For me, it has been very much worth it, but I think in general, it is a yes. Now, to elaborate on it, I think there are very clear reasons that one needs to have when going for an MBA. So it might be that you want to widen your horizon, or have a better understanding of business, or boost your career. For me, it was the third one, and I wanted a boost to my career, and I was not really satisfied in where I was. Now, speaking of the investment that there is, yes, there is definitely a quite a lump sum of amount that we have to pay for an MBA, especially in Indian situations, barring a few colleges, right?
Right.
But it is, if we talk about it, the 2 years that we invest, it is always as an opportunity cost that we see. Currently, if I am, let's say, based in an X designation, then I will obviously take into account the 2 years that I'm going to spend in my college as well as the money that I'm investing.
Exactly.
So doing an MBA from a tier one or tier two school, is definitely worth it in terms of the ROI. And many people just assume that, because they're doing an MBA, they'll get a direct ROI right from the get go. That doesn't happen at times. But yes, in the long run, it is very much profitable.
Okay. So basically, the brand matters also. Basically, that's the idea. So it's not just do an MBA from anywhere you feel like. You should be very particular about choosing the proper B schools. What are the opportunities? Also, look at whether you are actually a fit for an MBA, right? Not all people are
Absolutely.
actually made for an MBA, right? So they have their
Absolutely.
own dreams and also. Just don't join the bandwagon just because your peers are doing an MBA. You take a conscious call that yes, an MBA is something. So what is that thing? How do you decide? Like, let's say this third year student who is, let's say, maybe doing BCom or engineering. How does that student understand that whether that student is a fit for MBA? So how did you decide that you were a good fit for an MBA or you would like to go ahead with an MBA? So what made you change your mind? Like, no, no, not engineering, higher studies. Maybe an MBA is something better for me. So what made you think that?
So I actually joined up. I was one of the run-of-the-mill engineering students. I was in an IT company and I was working as a software developer. I started studying up on how to, progress my career further. I had definite guidance in terms of my brother also being one in the same line. He was in consulting already. He wanted a further career growth. So I could see someone ahead of myself in those same shoes, right? But I think the decision majorly boils down to the job role that you're looking for and the job role that you want. So let's say if I keep on telling that I want to be a manager at this position, or I want to ascertain this kind of position that is there. Now I'll have to look at, what are the steps that you need to do to get there.
Exactly.
So when you're deciding for an MBA, because an MBA is not specialized right from the get-go. Now, when you go to an MBA, you can decide your specialization as in finance, sales, or anything.
Right, right.
Other specializations like a master's in engineering, let's say, if I would be possibly doing an MTech, I would have to do it in IT, which is a specialization in my role. So firstly, I would have to ascertain what I want to do, if I want to continue down the same path, and then kind of, do my own homework. I did my own homework as in what are the lines available. The same thing for choosing a B school. It is the same, that you have to understand what are the companies. Every B school has their own placement reports, and
Right.
they have their batch kind of, batch dynamics. So once you go through them, you can easily choose that these will be the, B schools that I'm shortlisting, and what can I get out of it. If nothing is fitting my role or my profile at the moment, then I would not have chosen it, because it fits
Exactly.
something. There was a fitment over there. That's how I came to the decision.
Exactly. Also, while you are choosing these schools, so how do you decide? So one is the fit part, but let us say, I mean, everyone dreams to maybe do a do an MBA from the top 5 or top 10, but not all are able to make it to that. So if someone while choosing their B schools only decides that no, I'm just going to let's say do an MBA from the top 10 and apply only there, but eventually the reality hits hard that you are not actually made to be there, maybe you are a little less. So how do you decide? So during your preparation days, so in general, can you give some advice to our audience, like during your preparation when you are preparing for the test, the CAT or maybe the NMAT or the SNAP or the XLRI ZAT and all. So how do you decide that, okay, under CAT, you have like hundreds of these schools, right? So some of them are the top 10, some of them are the next 20. So what makes you decide that, yeah, I am a fit for the top 10 or am I a fit for the next 10? How do you decide that?
So I think when I was also starting out, and like you rightly said, everyone has a dream of that, what, top 5 B schools, that's it. I am ABC, that's it. And people will think they have a certain thought process like that. Right?
Exactly.
But often what we kind of misunderstand, or what we don't look at, is what happened in my case is that it is not generally only dependent on the CAT score. Your CAT
Exactly.
score, your ZAT score, or a SNAP score, and math score, any entrance exam score is not the only deciding parameter, even if you're going to get a call to the B school or not. Right? There are multiple things taken into account, which is like the work experience that you hold, your 10th and 12th scores, your engineering scores, or your bachelor scores. Right? All these things, when they're taken into accumulation, it kind of gives you the picture that what B schools you might be getting into and what might be into your reach. Like rightly said, when I started also thinking about getting to do an MBA, and when I started my preparation, uh, it was the shortlisting of schools. One was what I wanted. Out of those that I wanted, there were a few that were automatically eliminated because my 10th and 12th scores were not that high. So
Right.
I
Okay.
knew exactly how much I needed to score to even get into the schools that I wanted at a lower level also. So
Exactly.
the top 3 IIMs were already discounted. XLRI, Jamshedpur was discounted for me because of my scores over there. I knew that if I wanted to get into, let's say, NMIMS or a college like MDI or some of the lower tier IIMs, I would need at least a score of 95 percentile in CAT. So that was how I decided on the marking also, that what I would need to achieve to apply to any
Exactly.
B school. And on the flip side, I knew that these schools were not for me at all. I shouldn't be wasting time preparing for them or having my preparations aligned in a certain way. Even for my GDPI, let's say, Symbiosis has a different round of GDPI altogether.
Exactly.
Right? So we didn't, when I was going through the preparation, we didn't really prepare in that way. I knew what schools I would get into with my scores and how I was preparing also. And I knew exactly what to target at that point. It is always good
Exactly.
to have ambitions very high, but you need to have certain backups also, so that
Exactly.
at the end of the day, and by backups again, I mean that you should not go for any other B school. Have your choice
Exactly.
already narrowed down.
Exactly. So, I mean, getting the reality check is very important. Just because you fancy that, okay, I'll just get into IMA, but you have, let's say, maybe in the 10th grade a 70% and at 12th grade you have a 60%, and you're still hoping for an IMA, that's just not going to happen. So basically, you should actually do your homework well when you
Absolutely.
start doing your preparing for your MBA. Otherwise, what will happen is after doing all the preparation and even after getting a top good CAT score, you would suddenly see that, okay, you are not getting calls from any of those schools and you will be really very disappointed. So you should be ready with what is in
Yeah,
store for you and then accordingly prepare for the best. What is
absolutely. I
available,
mean,
because you can't change your past actually. What you have done is done.
just as an example, also, I did get a call from XLI Jamshedpur for
Yeah,
them
exactly.
PM and HR profiles. But when I went there, every year they do release a list of students who are selected into it, or what their batch profile is like. When I kind of observed it while I was doing my MBA, I just happened to look at their profile. There were already people who were leaving jobs at McKinsey or big top consulting firms, or from FANG jobs, FANG companies. They were leaving their jobs
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
were joining Excel, right? To then progress their career. For me, that was obviously, I would not be counted in that top bracket. because I knew already what scores I had and what my previous experience was also. So it is
Exactly.
very necessary that you get a reality check prior.
Exactly. So during your preparation days, so let's talk about that. So how did you prepare? So was it like throughout the day studying like 5, 6 hours at a stretch? Do you think that really helps? Or do you study in short parts so that your mind remains fresh? How much do you, how many hours do you study? There is no fixed number of hours, as I understand. So someone can just study for an hour, it's fine. Someone needs to maybe put in 4 or 5 hours, then it is fine. But still, for you, what do you think? Like, how should the preparation be? And not only that, so how should you, like, is it about solving hundreds and hundreds of questions? Or is it about focusing on the concepts first and then practicing a select few set of good questions which are typical of the test that you are appearing for? So how was it for you?
So for me, actually, I'm sure you remember, sir, I
Yeah,
decided to take up the preparation for my entrance exams at a very short notice. I hardly
exactly.
had 2.5 months to prepare for the CAT, XAT, SNAP, and any exam that I had. So when I came into being at the preparation stage, I had to buckle up a lot because my batchmates were already starting with the revision when I had joined.
Exactly.
I had
Yeah.
started, preparing. So for me, it was a very strong push, if I say so myself. It was endless hours of just solving questions. Also, it helped that at that point of time, I was not working. I had a break. So I could focus my entire energy throughout the day on what I needed to achieve. So
Right.
may it be multiple questionnaires or keep preparing for mocks or then doing the mock analysis, anything of that sort, I could devote my whole time. But on the flip side, I know, and speaking from personal experience, that kind of approach is not doable or not, withstandable over a period of time.
Exactly.
I think if it was more than 2.5 months or 3 months, I would have even crumbled under the pressure. When you're going
Right.
on day in and day out with that same routine, even towards the
Exactly.
end, I had that feeling that, it's a burnout.
Burnout. Yes, that's the correct term. Yeah.
So it is, I think, very necessary to understand how much time you have. Accordingly, space out your preparation in that way. That is what I would always say. If I have 6 months, I would ensure that the last 2 months are entirely devoted for the mock exams and
Right.
going about how I'm solving it. So one of the biggest problems, or one of the biggest problems in general, which students face, is sitting for those 3 hours.
True.
So it is not only that you get to sit for 1 hour, and it's a continuous process, especially when the last section, especially in terms of CAT, in our times at least, we had the last section being quants. When those big problems come, when a tough problem comes in the third hour, and you're already 2.5 hours down of solving those questions already,
Right.
it kind of gets to you. That stress does get to you. So it was the biggest challenge was to understand that I have to sit at a stretch for 3 hours with that same level of focus, not wavering at any point of time. So I think if that you have in check, so the best ways, according to me, would be to at least ensure that you're sitting 3.5 hours at a stretch and ensuring that you have the concentration developed. Obviously, it won't
Right.
happen day one, and it gets very frustrating because you are not able to. At the
True.
initial stages, you're not able to sit for those 3.5 hours with that concentration. But slowly, try improving it over there. And
So
that is, I think, the most helpful way also.
right. So if I can say a point, so let's say when you are planning your preparation, it is better to have small goals which add up to the final rather than having a lavish goal that okay, I'll finish the quantitative section in 1 month, which never happens because every day you think okay, 30 days is a lot of time. But when you start thinking, okay, 2 days I have to finish this topic, then it makes more sense because then, okay, you know that you have 2 days, so you work on that. And gradually, when you finish off, and then you keep a time at the end for your mocks, mock analysis, revision, and everything. So gradually, that's how. And when you take mocks, you should always sit at a stretch so that you replicate the exam conditions.
Absolutely. And I think,
Exactly.
like you also asked that, do we focus on specific topics and, hone them to that extent? I'm sure you remember for my quants, my specialty was permutation and combination and probability.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, during my year, although there is a very common trend of CAT having multiple questions of that category, in my year there were no questions from it.
Oh,
Across all exams, I think there were only 2 questions which I found. So
yeah.
that was a
Right.
negative for me. So I clearly understood, after giving the exam, it was a blessing in disguise that I had not focused only on that
Only
one
on
line,
that topic. Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So it is
Putting your eggs across
best to
all
have
baskets.
the
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. Okay. Now, after your the GDPI, basically, that's the post-test thing that we have. So that is also a big challenge, right? I mean, I think for some, I think people also think that that's actually a bigger challenge than writing the test. So what do you think? What are your ideas, and how do you prepare for the GDPI? So do you wait till your exams are all over and then you suddenly start preparing in those 2 months, or is this a continuous process that you undergo?
Actually,
So
like I said, until unless you have your scores in hand, you don't really know which colleges you are going to get a shortlist from.
right,
Different colleges have different procedures. It
exactly.
doesn't make sense for you to start too early with your GDPI preparation, because at the end of the day, you are creating, once you start preparing for your GDPI, especially for your PI, you start creating a profile for yourself, as in what you want to project to the interviewers, right? As what
Right.
you are. For your GD, obviously, it was throughout the process. You keep reading on news, on latest news
Yes,
topics,
exactly. You
or
can
what are
build
your
on your
general
knowledge
knowledge.
base.
Yeah.
You can
So it
build
is
on
it
your
is
knowledge base.
throughout the kind of process. But
Yes,
for your PI, and for your PI especially, you start after you have cleared your exams, or some of your exams are done and a few, maybe one or two are left. For
exactly.
your GD, the same goes. You start giving the GD a mock GD, or sitting down with your peers and having certain GD sessions. That is after your exam is done. But
Exactly.
starting too early doesn't really make sense in that way.
Yeah. So starting too early in the sense that uh, in the GDs, you have to be spot on with facts, right? So there might be topics which are factual. So for that, you need to know data. So you just can't say that the GDP of India is possibly, and then you start stammering. So those things is not possible to do post your test and suddenly in 2 months memorize everything.
Yeah.
So what maybe you are suggesting is keep your knowledge base ready and throughout the year study read up news, then magazines,
Yeah.
business stories, business magazines, the important things that are there. So and maybe collect it at one place, right, and
Yeah.
collate it,
I mean,
and then
I
so
mean
that
for
you have.
everyone. I mean, for everyone, I think whoever is practicing their verbal, or whoever is looking to improve their vocabulary, reading the newspaper is a very good habit. It
Yes,
also
true.
gives you a chance to kind of gloss over the news and kind of collate all the important happenings throughout the year.
True.
Also, you get to improve your vocab. So
Exactly.
it's like hitting two birds with one stone.
Exactly. Okay, so it was great talking to you. So you had some wonderful pieces of advice. Before we call it a day, so you have any special points to add to our audience?
I think if I had to say, I mean, anyone who's preparing at the moment for their B school entrance exams, I think the best advice that I got in my day was also prepare well. Don't be nervous if you have preparation, because
Exactly.
you will know that there are peers around you who might at the moment might look like they have done better in one mock, or they have done better in certain exams. It is easily possible for you to get demotivated and stop the preparation cycle altogether. Or if you set like very large goals, like you said, if
Exactly.
you see that I'll complete quants by this month, and then you find yourself lagging behind a little bit, it is easy to get demotivated and say, no, I need more time, and you get stuck over there.
True.
You just have to keep putting your efforts there. And if you have the preparation, you have to be very confident in yourself. It is not only seeing how everything is going or everything is not going. It is a continuous process. So especially for that, I think definitely that is number one. And number two would be you have a continuous assessment of yourself. So if I am at a score of 100 today, and I know a generic score of 120 is what I need to be, or let's say 150 or 160, I will see my improvement on those parameters. If today's mock is 100, I think one big problem with me was my consistency when I had started out. I could score 150 in one mock, and then I could go down to 90 in the second.
Right.
So I think that, and that is a big part of sitting for three and a half hours.
Exactly. Yeah. You tend to get tired very easily.
So that's the bbest advice that I got in my preparation days.
Okay. So thank you very much for joining in. So we'll be connecting you with more such, interviews, more such sessions like that, so that you can talk to our students later on as well. Hope we'll get you then as well.
Most definitely. Anytime you call for me, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much then.
Thank you,
Have a
sir.
wonderful time ahead. Good
You too,
night.
sir. Take care. Good night.